Okay, maybe that's coming.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Battle Creek, Michigan, and our Battle Creek City Commission meeting for October 4th, 2022. It is 7 p.m. First of all, we have two of our commissioners that are traveling this evening and will not be in attendance at our meeting. And then we do see quite a few people here for the public hearing. I just wanted to let you know that our Assistant City Manager has a slide presentation that he will be using to assist, to try to answer as many questions as possible. But we will allow as many people that want to speak during the public hearing. It's one of the first things on our agenda for tonight. So we're going to have an invocation, a moment of silence, and then we'll have a pledge of allegiance led by Commissioner Sophia. Could you please stand at this time for a moment of silence for our invocation? Commissioner Sophia.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item on our agenda is roll call. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Okay. Commissioner Blood is absent. Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Herring?
Present.
Commissioner Lance?
Here.
Mayor Banky?
Here.
Commissioner Morris?
Here.
Vice Mayor Reynolds?
Present.
Commissioner Sophia?
Here.
And Commissioner Zenda Wilson is also traveling.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Next item on our agenda is Chair noting any added or deleted resolutions.
There were none.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is petitions, communications, and reports.
We did receive a communication from Becky Ropp regarding the public hearing tonight.
All right, thank you. Next item on our agenda is the public hearing. I'll let the clerk read it. Thank you.
This is a public hearing to consider an amendment to the tax increment financing and development plan for the City of Battle Creek Downtown Development Authority.
I'll declare the public hearing open. I'd like to turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Ted Deering. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. So we're going to provide just a short presentation this evening on the Dda Plan Amendment, and then, hopefully get to comments from the members of the public as quickly as we can. I'm going to attempt to operate this from here. Hopefully this will work. As the Commission knows, the city is the administrator for the DDA, and for the last 2 or 3 years now, we've been working on a plan amendment for the Downtown Development Authority. It's actually the authority's development plan and its tax incremental financing plan that govern the work of the DDA. So I will try to work through this fairly quickly. I'm sorry, some of this language is a little small to see on the screen, but this particular slide addresses some of the components of a development plan and a tax incremental financing plan. One thing I just wanted to draw attention to real quick is that this particular plan amendment does not change the boundaries of the plan in any way or of the authority, and it doesn't change the duration of the plan. What it primarily focuses on is updating the project list in the plan, which is several decades old at this point. We don't anticipate that this plan amendment would have any impact on taxpayers within the authority. There's no change in a millage rate or anything associated with this plan amendment. Again, most of the focus is on updating the development list. So as you can see from this slide, the DDA was actually established back in 1979 and 1980, and the original project list, as you can see here, was relatively small. There were only about 5 items, and most of those items pertained to the development of Kellogg Arena and what was Stover Hotel at that time, now McCamley Plaza Hotel, as well as the Washington Street overpass. And the first real update to the project list actually came in 1987, as you can see here. And that list, you'll see this on the next couple of slides, obviously got quite a bit longer. And you started to see references to very specific projects within the authority boundaries, and then some general references to infrastructure that might need to be improved, as well as some programming, including marketing and promotions. And you can see the balance of the list there. The next big plan amendment project list update came in 1992. And the character of the of the project list didn't really change at that point. It still references to very specific projects within the authority boundaries, and then general references to infrastructure and to programming. I'll just show you the balance of the list right there. Some of the items on the list, as you'll note, have actually been completed at this point, which again references why we needed a plan update. And actually this 1992 list, which again was the last time it was updated, is still governing most of the work of the DDA, but obviously it is badly in need of an update. You can see there have been some amendments to the plan since 1992, with the last one coming in 1999, but none of those amendments actually address the project list until this 2022 amendment. So this slide gives you an overview of the DDA. You can see the authority is fairly large. It extends from the core downtown, it extends north all the way up to the KCC property. It goes west along the West Michigan corridor into the city limits. It goes east to, you can see like the Kellogg's and post-production facilities, and then goes south along Southwest Capitol to the north end of Goldwack Lake. And for the purposes of this plan, you can see we divided the authority up into 7 different development sub-areas, and each one of those sub-areas has a specific development theme. So I will go through these quickly. This one shows you the first 2 sub-development areas. The core downtown is the light blue area, and the south end of downtown is the darker blue area. And again, you can see how we've managed each sub-development area. You can see the mixed use and catalytic projects is the development focus in the core downtown, and then you can see some specific projects listed there, as well as reference to general infrastructure projects, and then a little bit of programming. In the south downtown, again, the darker blue area there, the focus is obviously river restoration. As you go west, the focus here is primarily on the Youth Village project and the Village Network efforts, primarily infrastructure projects in this area. If you go to the, if you go to the north, you can see, well, I'm to the east here, let me go back one. If you go to the north, you can see the primary development focus is affordable housing and green space in this area. To the east side, primarily neighborhood business districts, as we have a mix of commercial and residential in this area. And it's similar along Capitol Avenue's southwest corridor, where we really do need to do, and you'll notice the project here, we need to do a corridor study to better manage the transition between commercial and housing along this corridor into the downtown. And then, as I mentioned, it extends to the north end of the Goldwack Lake area. And there is a sub-area development plan in the city's master plan for the north end of Goldwack Lake. Although during this process, again, that is a conceptual plan that's within the city's master plan, and during this process, as a result of our Development Area Citizens Council conversation that we had, we did make some modifications to the project list to eliminate really any reference to public infrastructure. If you look at the sub-area plan on the north end of Goldwack Lake, there was a public beach and some other amenities that we don't plan to pursue, partly in response to the feedback that we did get from the folks living on the north end of the lake, and partly because it's our intent to work with developers in that area, developing in a way that's consistent with the zoning for that end of the lake. So this slide here just gives you a general overview of kind of a summary of the plan in general. As you can see, the full project list, which is actually attached to the public hearing on your agenda, actually has 137 project references, so obviously quite a bit larger than the original plan back in the early 80s. And you can see how the money is distributed as we project out over the next 5 years. So the plan current duration actually extends until 2034. For the purposes of this plan, we've identified most projects happening within the first 5 years, but not that we expect that to happen so much as we want to encourage the administration to continue to update the plan every 5 years. And so that's why you'll see those time frames around most of the items that you see in the plan here. I need to point out that the DDA does not capture enough funding on a regular basis to fund all of these projects. we've taken somewhat of a kitchen sink approach to this to make sure that any project that we might be interested in investing in is actually in the plan, because if it's not represented in the plan, then we can't make that investment. And we want to be in a position to take advantage of any opportunities that might come up, priorities that might change, for example. And a good example of that would be river restoration wasn't necessarily on our radar just a couple of years ago, but is coming more and more of a reality each day. And so we want to be in a position to invest and support that effort. And I needed to make sure that items were in the plan reference to that effort. So one last thing I'll just point out, when you look at the overall numbers, you can see most of the focus of the funding is in the core downtown, but the core downtown number also includes all of the debt service in the district. So that number is actually inflated considerably by what you see for debt service on this particular slide. So Mayor, that is all I have for this presentation. Obviously, I can be a reference to any questions the commissions may have either now or later, whatever the committee seems.
Very good, Ted. One thing I'm going to ask of you is that we assemble answers to all the public hearing questions and share them with the commission, and then also share them with the public so that we can alleviate any communication problems that there may be. And we'll do our best to answer questions. What I'd like to do is start here in the front row, and we'll just go through. We'll go all the way around the room, and then once we're done going around the room, we'll ask if there's anyone else that would like to follow up on additional questions. We're not voting on anything tonight. I just want to make sure you understand that. And once again, our city manager will do his best to respond to any of the questions that you present. So is there anyone in the first row that would like to come on up? Thank you very much, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Becky Rock, the lady who you have the information in front of you. And from what we just learned, some of my questions may already be answered. We did not know that the idea of the beach on the North Shore of...
Ma'am, if you could speak into the microphone, because there's people at home probably watching. We want to make sure that when we review the tape to answer all the questions that we do it properly. Thanks.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
We were very concerned about the proposal of a beach on Gogwak Lake, and it sounds like that now has been dismissed. So as I go through my paper, I will skip that part of what I was concerned about.
Okay, just take into consideration too that I believe we have 3 minutes. Thanks.
And yes. I live at North Shore Place on Gogwak Lake. I and a number of NSP residents have a few concerns and questions regarding the proposed amendment to the City of Battle Creek Development Authority's tax increment financing and development plan. Question 1, who determined the DDA boundary of development? 2, why so much emphasis on the north end of Gogwak Lake? 3, industry is leaving along with declining population, so why propose more housing of higher density? 4, and will this plan affect the value of our property on the lake? I'm going to skip the first paragraph here because it concerned the beach. We were told that this plan, titled The Redevelopment Concept, was only an idea. Now this plan is called the Columbia Avenue Subarea Plan in the city's master plan. Refer to page 5, paragraph 3. There's a big difference between a concept plan and a master plan. Has anything changed since your last meeting? It doesn't appear so in your written document. And then you misled us when we were told this was only an idea. We're providing our comments in written form to the council members so you will have our exact wording. We appreciate the additional member comments to the document on page 60, but there's been an inference in public comment number 2, which says, general support for development. It is not the feeling projected by the majority of the residents of North Shore Place. We're very concerned that the DDA plan has included infrastructure in its budget with proposed completion dates 2023 to 27, prior to any developer's purchase and proposed land use. Any development proposal must be presented subject to a public hearing before being approved. Is there currently an interested developer? Also, funding of the project development shows an expected completion date within 15 months and is $500,000.
Ma'am, I'm going to let you continue reading the rest of your page.
Thank you. Within 15 months and is $500,000 for this development to help buy land. We were told this money would be used for infrastructure, and yet the budget plan goes on to include 9 line items for infrastructure at a cost of an additional $250,000. Where is the funding coming from if, as you told us in the letter, there will be no new taxation? Is COVID money being used? There's been a rise in crime this summer in our community. Adding higher density housing and more public access to the lake invites an increase in crime. In the winter, when access to the lake is limited, issues lessen considerably. However, an open public beach, in our opinion, will possibly increase crime year-round in our area. In the letter we received from Ted Deering, per the public hearing notice, it is stated, the amendment does not propose or require the relocation of families or individuals from the development area. However, the redevelopment concept plan, master plan, for the north shore of Gogwek Lake would require just that. Also of note, on attachment D, there is misinformation. We were told by the DDA that they do not and would not buy property, and yet it is identified as DDA public properties on this map attachment. They've also claimed the Michigan State DNR boat ramp and parking area as a city park. This is owned by the state of Michigan, and they regulate it. In conclusion, the above issues, in addition to increased traffic, loss of trees and vegetation, additional access to both our property and the lake from the community, and the other issues previously raised, North Shore Place is not in favor of this development as currently proposed.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Robb.
Thank you.
Ted, do you have time to respond?
Well, there was quite a bit there, Mayor. I'm not sure exactly what piece directly you would like me to respond to. Again, we did go through a process. We formed a Development Area Citizens Council and did receive some feedback from folks living on the north end of the lake. I think if I could sort through, maybe it would even be helpful if I could talk with the lady that presented here, because I think I could sort through with her a number of the questions that she had this evening. For example, she mentioned that we're identifying in the plan that the boat launch is a public park, which we aren't. There's a map in the plan that identifies public facilities, but by public facilities, we're referencing any facility that's open to the public, for example. So we would certainly recognize, for example, that the boat launch is actually a DNR or a state of Michigan facility, but it is a public facility that is open for public use. So there are some details like that I think that we could sort through.
Okay. Commissioner Sivia.
Mayor, if I might, I think that it would be appropriate to finish with the public comment and then allow the assistant city manager to review the tape, compile written responses, because I believe that that is what these folks would be interested in, rather than trying to respond as each person comes up to speak.
I really appreciate your help. Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the first row? All right, we'll go to the second row.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Christina Smith, and I live at Bay Tower Condominiums, and I was selected as one of the people to be on the downtown DDA member criteria, and we went through things together, and it was very interesting to find out what the plans are for the city and where they plan to go forward. And I think those of us that live there, we want that. This is our town. This is where we live. We like it to be nice and welcoming to a lot of people. But being a resident of the lake, I was concerned when we started talking about the possibility of putting in a beach. I live right in front of where our pool is, not very far from the public access. This summer alone, we've had 4 or 5 incidents with people jumping our gate at night and being in our pool that we've had to throw out. We've also had the cops down there a lot because people get rowdy at the public access from the drinking and fun that they're having on the lake. So it's a concern to us that next to us at the waterfront or the old waterfront restaurant, we often see police cars and ambulance cars taking their breaks there, but I never see them down where we need them. So that is a concern that I have. The other thing is, while we were on the committee, I know several of the people mentioned that they wanted to be sure that all the residents that were involved had plenty of notification when these meetings were going to be held so that they could come and address whatever they needed to. I spoke to the president of Bay Village today, Susan Thomas, and none of the residents from there, which is 225 Columbia Avenue West, received any notification. And I was really concerned with that. We actually have 2 residents here now from there. And so that was one of the issues I thought I wanted to bring up tonight, is since we talked about that, we want to be sure that all the people involved are able to be here and speak if they wish.
Great.
And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Susan, and we'll make sure, or Christine, we'll make sure that we get a reason why the people at 225 Columbia Avenue
Thank
West
you.
were not notified. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the second row? Yes, sir.
My name's John Bensis. I was also selected to be on the Citizen Committee. Everything that, and I forgot your name, Becky? Everything that Becky brought up, I totally support. I think she was very thorough and robust. Same thing with Chris. I think she was very thorough there too. I do have a concern with, I know that the beach is kind of like off the record for right now, but multifamily housing in that area, due to the traffic that is on Columbia Avenue, and if you were to put more multifamily in the old Pache's restaurant area, or next to the Bay Tower Bay Village and just north of Hiawatha, trying to get in and out would just be horrible. And I want to reiterate the crime issue that, no, not so much the crime issue, but the problems that we're having down at the public boat launch in the evenings, late evenings, that create issues. And I think by just adding more traffic there is going to just create more issues. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else in the second row? Okay, we'll go to the third row. Well, fourth row. All right, we'll go to Joe Soborowski's row. And we'll go to Tim Elliott's row. All right, let's go over to this side of the room. Anyone in the second row? Third row? Fourth row? No? Fifth row? Sixth row? John Kennefick, yes.
John Kennefick, 234 South Avenue. This is not in regards to the north end of Goak Lake. This is in regards to the, as spoken by Mr. Deering, about the river work. Restoration is what he called it. I already spoke with either the Army Corps of Engineers in Detroit and this summer, and I explained to them that what was the matter and what the results were, and the survey was underway. The report hasn't been put in, even though the newspaper said it was supposed to be out this time in September. And when I explained to him that the purpose of this was a kayak run for the area for the river overflow, he didn't know what I was talking about. So then he got back with me a little while later, and I explained to him the purpose of this was to create a kayak run, and he still didn't know what I was talking about, but then later on he confirmed it. Didn't know that was a concern until he actually read it. And the report is higher up. He was the second in charge. There's somebody, a woman that's higher than her, and she was doing core samples. about a year ago. So I'm still wondering, an assurance from Mayor Binky back in the day when this first came up, a year or two ago, he assured me that all those reports would be in and would be presentable to the public. So far, I've heard nothing and seen no reports. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your comments. Are there any other individuals that would like to make a public comment at this time? Yes, sir.
I'm Ken Ropp. Following Becky is going to be tough. However, there was one little thing that really bothered me about this presentation of the graphics. They indicate in the minutes that there was a graphic problem. The problem wasn't graphics, it was a matter of print. You could not read the print. And to read it, I had to enlarge it 3 times, and you lose so much in that process, it goes off your paper. So I think that that's something we really ought to consider, making the print more readable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken. We will work on that. Yes, sir. Oh, John, I'm sorry. No, you can only do 1 time. Well, John, I'm sorry, but we can talk after the meeting. Okay, are there any commission comments at this time? All right, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is public comments regarding consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda. And we will limit these to 3 minutes. If you'd like to make a public comment regarding the consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda, please raise your hand and we will acknowledge you to come forward to the podium. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. Please state your name and address before beginning your comment and indicate which resolution you are speaking to. Are there any public comments at this time? Are there any public comments? Hearing none, we'll go to commission comment regarding meeting business.
Commissioner Morris moves to accept the consent agenda.
Vice Mayor Reynolds supports.
Been moved and supported to approve the consent agenda. Are there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote? The consent agenda has been approved. Next item on our agenda is resolutions not included in the consent agenda. First one is Resolution 508. Madam Clerk.
The city has an urgent need to complete certain repairs at Fire Station 4, located at 20th Street and Territorial. Given the difficulty of bidding projects at this time of year, the city manager's office, with concurrence from the purchasing office, gave the authorization to contact construction companies informally and quickly. The city's administrative code allows exceptions for purchases outside of the competitive sealed bidding process for in case of emergency repairs. Only one contractor, Miller Davis, responded with the possibility of being able to complete the work. City staff worked with the city's engineering consultant and Miller Davis to come up with proposals to complete the work. That proposal is attached to the resolution. If approved, this resolution authorizes the city manager to execute contract number 2023-021C with Miller Davis Company in a not-to-exceed amount of $212,000, which will be paid from account number 401.13.4267.971.040, Facilities, Building, Additions, and Improvements. The city manager or her designee is also authorized to execute change orders up to 15% in aggregate for pre-approved and city-initiated changes to the contract.
Commissioner Morris moves to approve Resolution 508.
Vice Mayor Reynolds supports.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 508. Are there any commission comments, concerns, or questions? Seeing none, would you please vote on 508? Resolution 508 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 509. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
50 Capitol Avenue Development Corporation, the entity created by Battle Creek Unlimited, which owns what was formerly known as McCamley Hotel, has been working to redraw the condo units at the McCamley Hotel to properly reflect the bank's collateral and reduce the number of condo units from 3 to 2. During this process, 50 Capitol Avenue Development Corporation has discovered during survey work that small adjustments are necessary along the boundary line between the hotel and the city-owned Kellogg Arena. It is necessary for the city to swap 2 small areas of land to 50 Capitol Avenue and to accept a small strip of land from 50 Capitol Avenue to straighten the boundary lines to meet both entities' needs. If approved, this resolution authorizes the city manager to convey 2 parcels of land described in this resolution to 50 Capitol Avenue Development Corporation by quitclaim deed and to accept title by quitclaim deed to 1 parcel of land from 50 Capitol Avenue Development Corporation. The city manager is further authorized to execute any required closing documents to straighten the boundary lines as described above, in addition to executing and accepting the quitclaim deeds and executing a new deed from the city to the city reflecting the new legal description of parcel number 0612-20-555-0 after the above land swaps have been completed.
Commissioner Morris with a motion to approve Resolution 509.
Vice Mayor Reynolds supports.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 509. Are there any commission comments or questions or concerns? Seeing none, would you please vote on 509? Resolution 509 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is general public comment. This is limited to 3 minutes per individual. If you'd like to make general public comment regarding matters over which the City Commission has control, please raise your hand and wait for us to acknowledge you. Then come forward to the podium. You will have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name and address prior to beginning your comment. John, I'd like to call upon you first if you want to come up. Thank you.
Again, John Bensis. My concern is I did not know about the DDA, the citizenship, or the citizen committee that I was going to be on, or heard about any of this stuff until I got something in the mail. During that time, we had brought up the fact that others had no idea what was going on. Okay, the city was not communicating very well. It was then said that, well, we'll do a better job. From Chris Smith just saying that our neighbors just to the east of us did not receive any kind of notification. I'm concerned that in the future, is everybody in the area that is being affected will get notifications to attend these type of meetings.
And we will look into that and find out what went wrong, and we'll share that with some of the answers to the questions that have been asked.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, John. Are there any other public comments at this time? Yes, ma'am.
Cindy Dion, 24 Poplar. I just want to do a shout out to the police department. They did what I consider a fabulous job of solving the drive-by shooting and the tragic death of a 2-year-old. They went from nothing to having those people in custody within 4 days. And I know partially in part that goes to credit to Cliff Street Market for sharing their video camera footage, but I just felt that BCPD did an excellent job, and I wanted to thank them and congratulate them.
Thank you, Cindy, for your comments. Are there any other public comments at this time? Yes, Jerry Steiner.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jerry Steiner. I live at 115 South 26th Street. I'm also a candidate for mayor, and I'm coming to you tonight because I'm a little confused about a few things. Maybe some of you can enlighten me. Can anyone tell me why George Washington never signed the Declaration of Independence? Maybe you didn't know. Well, you know, he had a reputation of always telling the truth. And it brings me to this commission to ask a question. Done a little research. I don't like stepping out on a limb, y'all, unless it can support my weight and the convictions behind my words. What I'm talking about is I discovered that the first African-American mayor who was appointed, Don Sherrod, was not in the historical record. And when I talk about the historical record, I talk about from 1859 to 2013. The Honorable Mark Binky is there, but Don Sherrod and the female who was also appointed mayor is not in the historical record. Now, I also have one other consideration that I'd like all of you to consider and perhaps give me an answer to it. I read in the newspaper, I think it was October 2nd, 2020, that if you run for mayor, you run the risk of, if you lose, never serving on the city commission again. Now, I don't know if the books or the city charter has been doctored, but I found it, and it's very explicit. So what I want to ask all the city commission, I know y'all don't answer questions, you know, just right away, is if this is true, then how could you seat Ms. Lynn Ward Gray if your own bylaws said that you can't do that? Now, I know that I'm new to this political game, but one thing is for sure about Jerry Steiner, I'm gonna bring the truth every time. I'm not gonna water it down so it's acceptable to some people and some people not. If I'm in error about this issue, I'd like somebody to show me, because I done read the record, and it says that I'm standing on firm ground. Now, in closing, that question I asked you about George Washington, he couldn't sign a document that was filled with hypocrisy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steiner, and we'll have someone get back to you on your question. Are there any that were public comments this evening? Yes, John.
John Kennevic, 234 South Avenue. I'm going to speak on serious issue, but then I'm going to go to kind of humor, but I have very dry humor, and then I'll go back to seriousness. At the Kingdom Builders Forum, which was at the Southeastern High School, Mayor Binky said that the mayor's position as mayor was ceremonial. He took an oath of office to defend the United States Constitution, and not that long ago basically spit on the First Amendment of the United States. First Amendment's freedom of speech at city commission meetings. But maybe that's just ceremonial. A number of years ago, Mayor Brian Kirkham and Vice Mayor Rebecca Squires put unilaterally, just for those two people, without the authorization of the city commission, put George Strand, the city manager, on a leave. That ended up in a lawsuit. Maybe that was ceremonial too. I would ask the people of Battle Creek, if they want to find out how many costs the mayor of Battle Creek, whether he's a commissioner or a mayor, call him up and ask him. Telephone number is 441-7663. And simply ask, how many cost increases have you approved since you've been in office? And please, if you don't respond to that, I'm probably not going to vote for you, which should be the response. Now, there was a second thing that was said at Kingdom Builders by Commissioner Gray. She said she serves the people of Battle Creek. I'm totally in agreement with that. I think she takes them and shoves them into an oven at 425 degrees. She cooks them to a golden brown, and then she serves them up to the government of Battle Creek in a nice, tasty confection. Mrs. Gray started as a commissioner in 2009. Between 2009 and 2011, she had 400 cost increases tucked under her belt. Somewhere between 2011 and 2019, there were 408 cost increases she approved. She gets back into office on July 5th, 2022, and with the rest of the commission, approved more than 250 cost increases. There is no difference between seeing the mayor of Battle Creek and Mrs. Gray. They love cost increases, and like the ex-city commissioner, Susan Baldwin, she never met a cost increase she didn't like. You're not having any major concern here. It's all the same game. Same cost increases, same oppression, and same swindles. I suggest the voters think carefully on that. And her telephone number is 830-2456.
John, thank you very much for your comments. Thank you for your comments. You can sit down now. Are there any other public comments at this time? See none? Are there any commission comments? Commissioner Bonica Herring.
I would just like to put on the record that that is Commissioner Gray and not Mrs. Gray. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commission comments at this time? Commissioner Lynn Gray.
I am thrilled people are taking an interest in my candidacy. That's really awesome. I did want to ask if the city attorney could speak to the allegation about me being able to serve as an appointed city commissioner.
I'd be happy to. That is not what the charter says. We don't have bylaws. We have a charter similar to bylaws, but this is what we have for home rule cities. Section 2.4 says, no person shall be a candidate for the offices of mayor and city commissioner on the same ballot. So you've got to make your choice. And if you're not selected for instance, if you're currently a ward commissioner, you're running for mayor, you're not selected for mayor, then you've given up your seat essentially for the ward. And then it says, no member of the city commission shall, during their term of office, hold any other office or employment with the city, unless otherwise provided in this charter. So there's absolutely no prohibition, and we regularly have commissioners run a subsequent office, run for mayor, serve as a ward commissioner, and then subsequently run for an at-large office. So there's nothing in our charter that would support what had been stated.
Thank you for that. And I did want to clarify the record as well. And I think the city manager's office, when I was serving in my first terms, 2009 to 2020, did research on the past mayors for the city of Battle Creek, and they were elected under the system that existed at that time by the fellow city commissioners. So that does not diminish their title of mayor. They were mayor under the system we had, and that was Donald Sherrod, who was my neighbor, and Maud Bristol Perry, who I worshiped with for many years and is still a mentor to this day. They are the only two African-American mayors that our city has had, and that is historically a fact. Both of them have 3 years that they served as mayor in our 160-plus year history, and we've had women in that leadership role for 7 years out of our 160-plus year history. Those are facts, researched by our city manager office, and they speak for themselves. So I just wanted to make sure we set the record straight on those public servants that have represented our city very, very well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commission comments at this time? I'd like to close the meeting by just acknowledging the funeral that will take place on Friday for William E. Lamoth, who was a longtime resident of the city of Battle Creek and the CEO of the Kellogg Company. He started in 1950 at the Kellogg Company when WK was still living out at his home on Gull Lake, and rose to the position of CEO and chairman of the board of the Kellogg Company. He was committed to Battle Creek. A lot of people will remember when we merged in 1982, the controversy that came with that decision, but no one will ever be able to say that he wasn't committed to our community and to better Battle Creek. He also served as CEO during a very good time of expansion for the Kellogg Company and contributed a lot of the dividends to the Kellogg Foundation that they continue to share around the world today. So if more than anything else, Mr. Lamoth was committed to our community. We thank the family, and we thank Mr. Lamoth for being here in Battle Creek. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.